Hey guys, welcome to Sports by Brooks on Fancred. We do this every weekday, noon Eastern time, 9 Pacific. I am live from Los Angeles, California. You could see this big depiction of the LA Memorial Coliseum right behind me. And today we're going to talk college football, more specifically, we're going to talk college football traditions. You know, there's not a lot of good games. In fact, probably the only good game of the weekend in college football is tonight, which is Penn State and Maryland. And that's not that great a game, but I think it in terms of entertainment value, storylines, James Franklin, Mike Locksley, the coach of Maryland, Franklin, the coach of Penn State, used to be on the Maryland staff together, two leading African-American coaches in the vanguard of that principle. And James Franklin could actually be the next head coach at USC. Don't be surprised. If I had to peg a favorite right now, I want everyone here that's tuning in, maybe you downloaded the app for the first time here on Fancred. And I don't think I've said this really on Twitter yet, but if I was to guess who is going to be the next head football coach at USC, because Clay Helton will not be coaching the team next year. In fact, he probably won't be coaching the team by the end of the season. He may not make it, depending on what happens tomorrow, to the Notre Dame game. He may get let go during the bye week if they get really embarrassed by Washington. We'll see. That win over Utah, whatever, that's nothing to people here in Los Angeles in the USC family, right? That means nothing. I covered USC for years, and it's not just a mentality. This is from my sourcing and my reporting on this subject. I can tell you that means nothing. It's a long season, and it's going to take a miracle for Clay Helton to keep his job. So who are the candidates? James Franklin's one of them. And I think another candidate to take very seriously, and I would not be surprised if he got the job, is a guy named Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator, recruiting coordinator for Clemson. He grew up in Anaheim when he was young, and then moved away from Southern California when he was 10 years old. Grew up in the mean streets, hard scrabble background. Tony Elliott, inspirational story. He is Dabo Swinney's right-hand man. And Tony Elliott has successfully come into Southern California and taken recruits away from USC, UCLA, and the California schools in general. So he is certainly someone, I'm dead serious, I'm looking you in the eye. Tony Elliott is a name. Remember that name. Remember where you heard it. I'm not saying this is a secret. He is well known. If you follow college football, you follow college football media on Twitter, you know who Tony Elliott is. He's the perennial top assistant available right now to become a head coach. And I think he's going to make that jump sooner than later. He could be in play for Tennessee. I actually think he's probably not, he wouldn't consider the Florida State job, or he's above it at this point, which is not so much a reflection of the stature of Elliott as it is how far that Florida State program has fallen off the map, which it has. So as far as USC is concerned, just give me a little background. But one thing I wanted to say, and I'm just starting to come to grips with it, it's not going to be Urban Meyer. In fact, Urban Meyer, I don't think, and this is the one part of the story that I don't know. I'm not inside his head. And of course, Urban Meyer, a little flighty, to say the least, right? You really never know what's going to happen with that guy. But I really don't think he wants to take the job. Well, maybe he wants to, but he really can't, because his family is still deeply rooted in the state of Ohio. He has children there, and he can't exactly up and leave Ohio right now, where he still makes his home. He commutes out to LA for Fox Big Noon. But so he still has kids there. He's got family there, and that's where he grew up and all that in the state of Ohio. Now, if he's going to leave because he has a brain cyst, supposedly the size of a fist, I'm not exaggerating, it's been reported, in his brain, on his brain, and that's why he's going to retire or resign from Ohio State. And then all of a sudden, after a year, and he's teaching a class right now at Ohio State, I just can't see him doing it. What I see him doing is ending up at Notre Dame eventually. And I'll explain that. I've talked about it before. But coming up, we've got in just 1 second, we're going to go to Dallas, talk to Jeff Kavanaugh of 105.3 The Fan about the NFL, the Eagles, the Packers, get his impressions, get the Cowboys. We're going to look at the lines from mybookie.ag. And then we're going to talk to Chris Myers, Fox Sports. He's doing the Bucks-Rams game. We'll get his impressions of what happened last night and get a pick on the fight, because Chris Myers does PBC boxing for Fox as well, but he's on NFL assignment. And then we've got the number. You wonder, who is the Adam Schefter of boxing? Who's the Adrian Wojnarowski of boxing? Yeah, it's Jeff Kavanaugh, right? No, it's actually Stompface. It's the dog, right? Is he around today?
She is right at
that makes it even better that Stompface is a she.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't.
Everything's
maybe it's the opposite.
It's all terrible.
Right?
Yeah, it's all terrible.
And don't quote me on that. we may lose all of our sponsorships if the Des Moines Register is tracking this show. So we got to be careful what we say, right?
Yes.
And so Mike Coppinger of The Athletic, who is like the #1 boxing breaking news guy every day, lucky to get him. We got the Spence fight coming up over the weekend. We're going to talk to him later on in the show. So we got that going on. Matt Jones, by the way, if you saw it on Twitter, talked about it, built it all up. He's going to be coming on the show. He's running for Senate. It's going to be not coming on the show.
Oh,
not going to be on. No, he's going to be on next week. But, because he's canvassing the state of Kentucky. Do you know who Matt Jones is, Jeff?
I don't know who Matt Jones is, but I know that Errol Spence is going to win by knockout in the 10th.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I think that's a reasonable prediction. I think it's going to be a PBC Al Heyman production where we're going to have two guys dancing around to try to get Sean Porter's kids' college tuition, and Sean is not going to get marked up in the fight.
Oh, okay.
These guys both work for Al Heyman. They both work for PBC. Forgive me for that, the conspiracy theory, but Sean Porter's a guy, not the most artful fighter.
No,
I don't know if you would even classify. He kind of leads with his chin. He reminds me of he's like Darren Sproles out there, right? He's like a football player. He's trying to. I mean, he lost his last fight. He lost to Ugas. So, but congratulations to his children. They'll be going to the college of their choice.
That's outstanding.
Maybe USC. Gonna have a lot of money, so you don't need those grades to get in USC. We know by now.
Just don't say that he's a crew member.
Right. Or water polo.
Right.
Forget about the Photoshop.
Yeah.
By the way, Jeff, can you believe, dude, because I covered the college admission scandal. We did like a 6-part investigative report on SportsbyBrooks.com. So
you sent Uncle Becky to prison.
Well, here's the thing, dude. Are you as shocked as I am that these people are doing time? I mean, I'm stunned. Are you surprised?
I guess, because I think I would do the same thing. I mean, I get it. You don't want people.
Wait. You would do the same thing, like if you're the prosecutor or you're Aunt Becky?
If I'm Aunt Becky.
You would have done the same thing for your kids.
Yeah, if I had the resources to make sure my kids get to go wherever they want, I'd do that.
But you're saying that she deserves, they deserve to go and do hard time at a supermax.
No, she should have just admitted. Just admit it. Yes, you caught me, I'm guilty. Now punish me in whatever way you think is fair. You can't say not guilty.
Well, you never know. That hot yoga and meditation might work. It just might work.
It might.
Maybe they should call the juice and consult with the juice on that. I mean, he's on Twitter now. The other thing about it, we'll get to the Cowboys here in a second. Did I bring this up earlier? Where's the blue check mark for OJ? I mean, what does verification actually mean? He's a public figure, right? We know who he is. What the hell? What's going on with that? You need to look into that, Jeff.
I guess if he asked for it and whoever had control for it, you would immediately give it to him. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they just have
no. I'm you know what, dude? That's wait a minute. That's that's a blog post. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have to look into it. That could be a really big story. Well, that could end up going viral. The aggregator goes viral, right?
You're an insane person, Brooks. You're an insane person.
I am pretty insane. That's the way my mind. That's why we have you on the show, right?
It's not going to help. No. Mm-mm.
And is Molly there today?
Yeah, she's in the living room. Yeah,
she's being very quiet today.
Yeah.
Now, did you take measures to make sure that we don't have the barking today, or are you deliberately in the other room?
I posted up in the office for the great optics, bookshelf.
Right. Oh, the high production value. This is like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC.
Yeah, if I had speakers on my desktop so that I could actually hear you, then I would have gone full studio mode with the camera and the mic, but I opted to not take those steps today.
Right, because you didn't want to look too good for the show, right?
Right.
Because it's just my show. That's
right.
All.
Like you did enough, but not too much. Yes. It has to look like it's pretty casual for me.
We got Jeff Kavanaugh in Dallas, 105.3, and the Fan. And we're going to get to these lines, but first of all, for the Cowboys particularly, but first of all, what did you think of the game last night?
I think the guy who came into the game late after all of the cornerback injuries committed PI on the last play, Brooks, and I'd like to challenge that play and go back and give the Packers one more play. I think he committed PI. I was a little surprised by the score. I was one of the few people who was still an Eagles believer at 1-2, at least around these parts in DFW, where I said I think the Eagles are better than the Packers. But I thought road teams go to die on Thursday night, and so I didn't know if they could overcome that part of it, but they did. So, yeah, I think the Eagles are really, really good, and that'll bring the Packers defense back to earth. I got pretty excited about the Packers defense, and now all of a sudden they got shredded. So I don't know. I think they're both really good.
Well, you guys, in fact, you guys have the Packers coming up. It's gonna. How do you think that game's gonna go? Cowboys gonna whoop them. Now that's not a homer. That's kind of a homer tone right there. That's kind of a Texas down home homer tone.
And I'm not even a homer. At least I don't think I am. I try not to be. I pick them to lose a lot, but this is a different Cowboy team. They finally have an offensive coordinator who's aggressive, who wants to prove that we're better than that team, not that we can beat them with 4 seconds left. So I think the Cowboys' offense is in really good shape if Amari Cooper's healthy. And so when you ask me, I think they're going to run the Saints. I think they're going to run them.
Really?
I think it's going to be another blowout. And
by the way, I 1,000% agree with you. Why is nobody bringing up the quarterback situation for the Saints?
I
mean, nobody.
Teddy's a nice guy.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, Teddy's a really good guy, and he's easy to cheer for. So I guess you don't want to point out that it's a massive difference from Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
they want him to be good, I guess. They feel like he should be good, but he just isn't, and he never will be.
I want him to be good. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's a sweet, sweet man. I also think that their offense versus the Cowboys' offense is a mismatch, and I think it's going to be a double-digit win.
I think the Saints have a better chance with Taysom Hill at quarterback than they do with Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay, that's over the line, sir.
I don't think so.
Over the line.
Well, let's hold on to this tape. Mark that. All right, that's radio talk, Cam. Okay. I want you to mark that because I think that guy, if Brees is out long enough, is going to be playing by the time Brees. Well, we'll see. We could be totally wrong.
Throw a ball more than twice in a game before I can't believe you're crowning him. You just said that Taysom Hill would be an MVP candidate. I heard what you said.
All right. You'd be a great attorney. You'd be a great promoter, right? Yeah.
Radio.
I like the way you think. All right. So we've got the Saints and the Cowboys, and of course, we are going to we're going to give you exactly what the line is here from mybookie.ag. Jeff Kavanaugh's Dallas Cowboys analysis is brought to you by mybookie.ag, where they will double your deposit with the promo code Fancred. So if you're on mybookie.ag, dial that up on your internet. And if you deposit money, mybookie.ag, they'll double it. That's amazing. FANCRED is your promo code. It sucks because I'm always the guy who's booking the hotel, who's booking the rental, whatever I'm booking, and I never have a promo code. I'm that guy. Everybody's got one but me.
And everybody assumes radio people have all the hookups. I can't tell you the number of people that ask me about tickets. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. I have a card that has access to my building if you want to come in my building.
Right.
Jerry doesn't give me tickets. That's not how it works. I'm sorry. I have nothing.
And it's not like that place seats 200,000. Oh, it does. I'm sorry.
Sir.
Holy cow. I have yet to be there, but I want to go see a fight there. But all right, so let's look at the line here. Let's look at the line. And so the mybookie.ag line is Cowboys -3. Now, here's the thing. This is really important. This is production 101. We're running a first-class operation, major production value. So we want to put this clip out there. It's going to go viral. And so when you do your analyses, I'm going to do the Mr. Radio guy.
Okay.
And then I'm going to cue you. All right. I'm going to cue you. And then you're going to give me the analysis. And we're going to have a beautiful clip that we're going to put up. And then everybody's going to win a lot of money. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I would like to put out this clip. Did you guys watch us right here last week? Did you watch somebody give you the winning combination? Did you watch somebody tell you the Cowboys would cover and that they would hit the under? Did you watch someone try to get you rich last week?
Now, wait a minute. Are we going to be tracking you every week?
No.
You're very enthusiastic. Exactly.
No.
Right, exactly.
No. No. I just want last week. That's all.
I had to throw cold water on that. I shouldn't have done that. You know, it's a sponsored segment. You know,
I'm not Paulie, pocket change Paulie. I don't have a service and I don't promise to make you rich. And if I had one, I probably wouldn't share my picks. I would just get rich.
You don't have a Vinny and Rocco.
I don't.
Might pay a visit.
No.
An unfortunate visit, right?
Negative.
So let's set it up here. Let's do the professional introduction. So Jeff Kavanaugh from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas joins us here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. And Jeff is brought to you by mybookie.ag. They'll double your deposit with the promo code Fancred. And Jeff, great to have you in from DFW today. The MyBookie line, Cowboys -3. What do you got?
I've got the Cowboys easily covering the 3. I think you look at that Saints defense and even Marshawn Lattimore, who's a really good player, I think, or at least has shown me he is over the course of his career, has not been good this year. Eli Apple has not been good this year. I don't think that Saints defense has nearly enough to stop the Cowboys from putting up at least 27. And without Drew Brees, I can't see the Saints offense putting up more than 17. So I may be wild. I may be crazy, but I think the Cowboys are going to win this game by double digits. And it'll be a week from now when we start talking about the real competition. It took the Saints a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown to do what they did a week ago. So if you can avoid those things, I don't think this game's much of a danger for the Cowboys. The biggest danger is that building. That building is wild. And if you don't get out on them early, it can really influence the game. But as far as the two teams on the field, I think the Cowboys cover it easily.
And Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. So what about that over-under? It's currently 47, according to mybookie.ag, Jeff.
Well, let's see. If I'm going to nail the score again, I'm going 27-17, which puts us at 37-44. The number's at what? 47. That means we're going under
47.
Cowboys again. Under and Cowboys again. Get rich, everybody.
Absolutely, man. Great job. I really appreciate it, Jeff. We got to have you on every single week, and we got to get Stomp Face on. We got to get Stomp. Is Stomp Face there? Every single show. Oh, my God. What an adorable dog. That's amazing. Right at your feet, too. That's amazing. A little embarrassed. A little uncomfortable there. Looking away. Molly's in the other room.
She's not ready.
What's that?
She's not a TV star. She's not ready. I'll have to get her prepped for next week.
We got to get her some reps.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And so Molly, is Molly in makeup? Is she in the green room?
Yeah. She's actually prepping for next week. She's going to take a whole week to get ready. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Jeff, thanks so much, man, for dropping by. This is awesome. Had a lot of fun.
Bro. Love you.
That's it. Love you too, buddy. When you say love you, though, that's not really a buddy thing. That's more of like an intimate term, love. Like you, buddy, right? So it's Sports by Brooks on Fancred, where, as you can see from Los Angeles, we're actually in Redondo Beach, and we're at the USCFootball.com studios. And, of course, we've got USC Washington coming up. Already talked about that. I think we talked about it enough. Maryland, Penn State, the best game in college football. It's funny, I'm hearing people. I was listening to all the radio. I'm like the last person on earth that listens to sports, like national sports radio, right? I mean, that's like trucker stuff, isn't it? But I actually listen to national sports radio all the time. And I'm hearing it all morning and all week. Wow, the biggest game of the week is Notre Dame against Virginia. What? Now, Virginia is ranked. Why? I have no idea. They're squeaking past freaking Old Dominion. So who knows? Notre Dame may squeak past them. I don't know. But that's the biggest game. I don't think so. The biggest game to me is Maryland, Penn State, because you've got a Maryland team kind of you know what? Forget about that. Forget about it. Forget about it. Because we're so deep into the season already and nobody has played any meaningful conference games like Ohio in the Big Ten, Ohio State. Who the hell knows? And now they're playing Nebraska. Game days there. What is that going to prove? Nothing. We're still not going to know anything about Ohio State. So I'm sitting here trying to break down Maryland and Penn State. How would I know? Maryland has been so up and down. They got a new coach, Loxley, and you kind of expected that, I guess, but who knows? These teams, I mean, Penn State hasn't played anybody yet, so we'll see. I gave you the one thing to look at, and that's James Franklin. And I put in a call to David Jones. I keep talking. You have no idea who David Jones is. I know. Harrisburg Patriot News, Pennsylvania, has been covering Penn State since the beginning of time. In other words, when Joe Paterno was launching his career. Now, but maybe not that long. But David Jones has been covering Penn State a long time. Great guy. Want to get him on to talk not about Penn State football. We want to talk about James Franklin going to USC. I want the dish. I want the celebrity gossip of college football. What's going on? Because he wrote a big article about it. David Jones did, about James Franklin potentially going to USC. This is in the offseason. He's one of those guys. There's a guy like this, Cam, you know this, Cam Smith, our producer. You know this kind of guy. You probably know this as much as anybody because you know Cam Smith, our producer, knows more sports media people than I do. Unbelievable. But John Canzano, right? Guy stirs it up. There's guys like that in every, well, it's usually like one guy in every market that gets a lot of attention, does a lot of good work. And for that reason, if he's covering college sports, he's the most despised man within the city limits. Because if you're a big college sports fan, college football, college basketball, you're a fan, you're like a child. You can't take criticism because you're spoon-fed Gerbers by ESPN and FS1 and all those, you know, Fox. They've got all these. I mean, ESPN's bread and butter. I said, by the way, I got to stop using the term bread and butter. Is that like an old guy term or what? Get something new, freshen it up. But, I mean, college football is the mainstay financially for ESPN. They'd like to increase their presence with the NFL. I don't see that happening, though. Isn't it funny how ESPN, since they maybe they didn't get rid of John Skipper, but John Skipper, you know, the longtime president at ESPN, the guy who is really responsible today for the college football playoff because he just decided to write a check. He's made more money for more people probably in the history of sports. Sports media, John Skipper, who's now at DAZN, DAZN, DAZN. He's gone. Jimmy Pitaro's in. And so since then, Jimmy Pitaro, the president of ESPN, has dedicated his life to being aware of which side of the bed Jerry Jones gets up on every day, right? Making sure the NFL is happy. Now, I could say ESPN's been kissing the NFL's ass since he came in, but that would be an inappropriate way. Oh, wait, I already said that. Sorry. But that's pretty much what's going on. But what's funny is how the NFL continues to troll ESPN, ABC, and Disney with bad games. They're still doing it. Hilarious. Meantime, Fox is golden. Fox gets this ridiculously awesome game last night. I mean, it turned out to be an awesome game, but it looked like an awesome game going in. It was a really cool, interesting match. ESPN never gives those games. Never. Very rarely. They got the Chiefs and the Rams before last year on the schedule for Monday Night Football. But, of course, we didn't know those two teams would be doing what they were doing. We didn't know Mahomes was going to do what he's doing. So it was blind luck. Plus, it was Mexico City. Remember, that was supposed to be, you know, I think the NFL is saying, well, the Rams and the Chiefs, that might be too attractive for ESPN. So let's put it in Mexico. And that whole debacle. And I'm convinced, think about this for a second. I'm convinced that that was a fraudulent enterprise to move the game I think that somebody, those baseball fields when you're growing up, some kid rides his motorcycle through the baseball field after they're sprinkling it the night before a big game, ruins the field. How many times has that happened in your life? It's happened a lot in my life. They ruined so we're going to have to put up new fencing, and we have to have a guard or whatever it is, put in the turf instead of the grass. Right. Why didn't we have turf down there in Mexico City? We got blurry pictures of the field. I tend to believe that they just made it all up and moved the game to the Coliseum. And I'm not sure if anybody said anything about that, but I have a tendency to believe the fix was in there, right? A little bit like the Rams and Saints in a different way, the fix with the no call, perhaps. You're not supposed to say that. Not in this day and age of legalized wagering, which is fine. I mean, wagering is a way of life. That's why I'm bringing it up. Nobody brings it up. It's important that we have transparency. That's what the NFL's PI review represents right now, pass interference reviewing. It represents the appearance of propriety, trying to fix what happened. But it's more about appearances for the NFL. Like if you're trying to wade through this whole pass interference crap right now, and more of it came out of last night. We got that strange non-call, and we got more than one weird calls. You heard Jeff Kavanaugh mention it, 105.3 The Fan, Dallas, mybookie.ag, I might add. Well, what's really happening here is they'll probably just do this for 1 year, and it's all about a makeup, a CYA, to try to make what happened in the Rams Saints game a little more acceptable for people, that the NFL is trying to do something proactive. But clearly, in practice, nothing's happening. Nothing's getting overturned, right? So it literally is something where, I mean, you have to believe they're telling the officials and the replay officials from on high in the NFL, you don't have to change anything. We're just going to make it look like we're trying to do something, right? That's what's happening. There's a few people out there that are kind of intimating that. Albert Breer, actually, not in the way I'm saying it. I'm a goofball. Albert Breer is the guy that's the Rolls Royce, right, of NFL reporting. NBC Boston, I believe, the Sports Hub 98.5 in Boston, which, by the way, congratulations to the Sports Hub 98.5 all sports station in Boston. They won, I think, a Marconi Award. Cam, did you hear about that? Cam Smith, our producer in Boston, for the number one, I think it's sports radio station in the country at the NAB Awards last night. And I want to congratulate, I think, Mike Felger and Tony Maserati won. I was ahead of you there. We're thinking on the same wavelength. Felger and Maz, Mike Felger, Tony Maserati, of course, Mike Felger right here on Fancred, fourth quarter live, Patriots games, right? Big time guy. Well, he's even bigger now. Major market personality of the year, Mike Felger, Tony Maserati. And whenever I get off this show, in all seriousness, of course, it's because I love them and their personalities, but they also happen to be talking about Tom Brady, Antonio Brown. So when I get off this show, we do this show 90 minutes to 2 hours every single day. When I get off the show, I immediately dial up 98.5, the Sports Hub. So I'm there with everybody else listening. Obviously, I'm not the only one who really appreciates what they do. So congratulations to those guys for those awards and for completely causing me to lose my train of thought. as we're talking, we've been talking about the pass interference review stuff, right? So, but I need to get off this because first of all, I need to remind you, Mike Coppinger is going to be coming up with us, the Adam Schefter. I don't know if that's okay if I say that with him on the air. And I've kind of said that. I think I said on Twitter about this Mike Coppinger who's coming on with me, and he's a friend of mine. Great guy. His dog's name is Baxter. As you can see by now, into dogs. We've got Stomp Face and Molly with Jeff Kavanaugh. That's what we should do every time, Cam. We need to get but then they'll start to demand appearance fees, the dogs. So I guess you don't want to start down that slippery slope. But we have Stomp Face and Molly. We have Baxter. And I'm going to ask Mike, see how Baxter's doing, because I know Baxter well, his dog, right? Mike lives in Los Angeles, friend of mine. But he also happens to be the number one boxing reporter breathing today in the world, breaking news. Like, for instance, when the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight, when the news came out that they were going to fight a rematch, Mike Coppinger broke the news. I think he broke the news of Spence and Sean Porter. And I'm here to tell you, if he did, I'm sure he'll let us know. Well, you got to be that way if you're Mike, because you got to get the credit. And if you're doing boxing, you might not get that credit when it's due from the main sports media and from your contemporaries sometime. But Mike really is a cut above in terms of breaking news. Everybody else, he's a little bit like Secretariat, if you think about that in horse racing terms, but in boxing media terms. Secretariat way out in front of the pack. I'm not exaggerating, all right? I'm not fawning over the guy. So he's coming up later, hopefully. Of course, we built up Matt Jones coming on. Not coming on today. He'll come on next week. And Chris Myers, just a great guy. Used to work with Chris. He's at Fox. Needs no introduction. He actually does boxing for PBC, but he's not doing boxing this weekend. He's going to be over doing the Bucks and the Rams here at the Coliseum. And he's at the Rams facility today. And he's going to give us the lowdown on that game, what he thought about last night, and talk a little bit about the fight. So we're going to have fight coverage for you towards the end of the show, right? We also gave you some NFL picks earlier. You know, I thought about doing my picks for this show. I thought about it for about half a second and then said, hell no. What the hell would I do picks for, right? Everybody does the picks right now. That's fine. It's a way of life. But let's get the experts in, like Jeff Kavanaugh. Let's get the experts in on boxing, like a Mike Coppinger. That's what this show is all. It really is, actually. If there's something that I'm an expert on, like, let's say, college football coaching right now, but we'll have other stuff, then, you know, I'll spin gold for you. But, you know, as far as gambling and betting is concerned, I mean, Jeff Kavanaugh, and we were joking around there, but that guy watches freaking film, covers the team every day, around the team, and don't be deceived. He is a guy with as much expertise on the nuts and bolts of how the Cowboys play, how it interfaces with the coaching staff, the personnel, with the talent on the field, off the field, and the coaching staff, front office, all that stuff. So that's all accounted for as we give you these picks. And of course, he was a winner on this show last week, going 2-0. MyBookie.ag, they double your deposit if you type in the word Fancred when you join MyBookie.ag. They'll double. That's an unbelievable deal. You understand what that means? It means you put $500 in, or you put $300 in, double it. That's freaking amazing. So, but I want to, you know, I can only imagine those of you out there who, if you've tuned in to the show, you're like, what is he talking about? He's going on and on and on about this, that, and the other. Who is this guy? I don't know. We're talking about who's coming up on the show, everything but what I said I was going to talk about on Twitter. Remember, I was on Twitter. Why would you remember? But I was on Twitter, right? And telling you what I was going to talk about on the show today. And I want to bring up the fan line today. I want to bring some of you on the show, on screen, to yell at me. This is your chance to go off on me. All right. And there's nothing wrong with that. We'll have fun with it. We keep it civil. I'm sure we will. Well, we have a fun topic that I threw out, and this is going to be one of those recurring topics because I think this is a good way for us to kind of join hands. Viewers out there, those of you watching, understand, if you're watching me on your phone or your tablet, there is a button, an icon on the screen, top right, and it says fan line. So if you click on that, that will take you into the transfer portal. Now, it'll take you into an area, a queue, and then our producer, Cam Smith, will make a decision. He'll decide if he's going to put you on screen with me or not. And if you have some well-reasoned, thought-out idea as to why you should be on with me, you're going to get on. We're going to put you on. How many people can we put more than one person on with me at once, Cam? Can we put 3 people on or 4 people on? Or could we have, like, I don't know, 11 people here, like a football team? 9 people? Like, let me know. I'd love to have a lot of people on to confuse people as much as possible, right? No idea what people are saying. How many times, by the way, have you watched CNN, MSNBC? You just got to turn it off. Can't understand what anybody is saying. Let's see. Now, and it turns out probably going to stick to one right now. But at some point, I'd like to get like a debate amongst fans, you know? And the best debate, what would the best debate be about? So the whole point here, folks, is if you haven't been on Twitter today, I'm sorry. It only took me 36 minutes to get to it. But because I was supposed to do this at the top of the show. But then, of course, Stomp Face came on the show. So we had to derail those early plans. That was worth it because we're going to make you some money. But on Twitter, I've just been going crazy in a frenzy today, talking because this subject does this to me because I grew up in a Notre Dame household. My father was a Notre Dame honk. He went to Notre Dame, graduated in 1954. My brother went to Notre Dame. My cousin went to Notre Dame. And of course, I didn't go to Notre Dame, right? Because didn't have the grades. Wasn't paying attention in class, wasn't doing what I should do, wasn't diligent enough. Went to the University of Georgia. It worked out okay. Actually, I think it was a big plus. But getting back to the subject and topic at hand, college fight songs, college football, game day atmosphere, in-stadium atmosphere. We're really starting to refine it down now on the show, if you're paying attention. And so I solicited people today to come on the app. Come on this app and hit the fan line. And what's cool about this is the one show, all right? The one. Nobody else does this. Nobody. So obviously we're a video streaming show and we've got major league guests. All right. I don't know if I can trust you guys with some of these guests right now. Maybe we'll get there, right? It just takes time. At some point, I hope to have some interaction between you guys watching the fan line and our guests. Take some questions, take some comments and all that stuff. We've got the comments thing going right now. You can comment on the show. If you're looking at the app right now, you could like the show. You can give me a thumbs down if you want. Go right ahead. But so today I went on Twitter and yesterday or the day before, actually, I put up a Twitter poll that now has, I don't know, what is it, 20,000 votes, something like that. And we've had sports media celebrities, Albert Breer weighing in. Who else? Jacob Ullman from Fox Sports, big time producer at Fox Sports. Who is Jacob Ullman? Jacob Ullman is a big cheese guy at Fox Sports, right? USC graduate. But when, like, for instance, I'm assuming, I haven't talked to Jacob lately, but he has the greatest job in the history of the world because, like yesterday for the game, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman doing the game. If they ever show those guys, you see a guy standing behind those two, the announcers, that's Jacob. That's his job. I mean, it's one of his jobs, but that's what he does. And he does it pretty much every Sunday. Greatest job in the world. And he is an amazing guy, just a dear man. And he weighed in on Twitter on one of the subjects that I brought up. But when I said to you earlier, we're refining this topic down. You know, let's get blood out of a turnip. Let's talk about this for the next 5 weeks. But so you know, what we've done here is we started off 2 days ago on Twitter and we said, what's the best college football game day atmosphere? And I put up 3 choices: Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame. Those were kind of like stupid default choices that I probably shouldn't have put up. Okay. I recognize that now. All right. You've been screaming at me on Twitter. You can scream at me here if you want. hit the fan line button if you're watching. If you've come over, downloaded the app, I appreciate it. Got your account. You've got your own community with your favorite team right here on Fancred. And Lord knows we're going to be here every day, right? Every day, noon Eastern. So we're going to be talking about stuff like this. So I'm welcoming you into the fold, even though I don't know you that well. In fact, I don't know you at all, right? I'm that kind of a guy. Cam Smith, our producer in Boston, also welcoming. Happy to have you on the show. Happy to have you on screen. So we've been doing this poll, and the poll has been hijacked alternately. I don't know if you noticed this, Cam, but of course we had Felger 18. Felger. Reflog. Mike Felger's name is Mike Felger is on my brain right now. Well, why wouldn't he be? I listen to his show every day, and he's a big shot. Won the big award. Congratulations again. But Reflog 18, the guy from Columbus, the viral guy on Twitter, Ohio State guy. Well, he drummed up a lot of votes through retweets and replies from Ohio State fans to kind of rig the poll, distort the results. And so, remember, I told you we had a best college game day atmosphere for college football, and it was Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Alabama. Well, when he first started getting going on Twitter, we had him on the show. He's a great guy. It was all like kind of neck and neck, right? Everybody was getting like 20%, and then we had like 40% other. And we had a fourth choice, which was other. You fill in your team. And when he got a hold of it, it went up to like 65% Ohio State, maybe even higher than that. But now LSU fans have taken over. They're pissed. There is there's blood in their eye, that tiger's eye, which as we refine down these topics, Cam, it gets more and more right. Reflog 18, Chris McNeil actually is his name. Thank you, Cam, for that. Chris McNeil. And he's a regular guy. When we had him on the show, he hosts a show on Big Play. He has a podcast, and just type in REFLOG 18 and you'll get his podcast. And it's a good show. I watched part of it. We talk about the Browns and the Buckeyes, right? But so we have him come in and the Buckeyes take over, and then LSU comes in. They take over the poll. And now Ohio State's back down to like 30%, right? And the other category is past Ohio State with people coming in with LSU votes. Now, they hit other as the response, and then they fill in the reply, LSU. But what I just said, tiger's eye, right? We were talking about refining this subject. So we've gotten from the original college football atmospherics, that dumb poll, that now we got like 20,000 votes. It's going crazy. Who knows where it's going now? Who knows if there's another faction of fans taking over? I mean, look, listen, I should have put LSU on there in the first place, and I kind of knew I should have. But, it's Alabama, right? They're great. Just listen to the guys on ESPN. Yeah, Nick Saban. Saint Saban. The man has his own statue. The guy was like, how old was Saban when he got the statue? Like 56 years old. And he had never been in the state of Alabama before he had started as coach. Had no connection to Alabama whatsoever. Statue. Now I understand. Well, he won a national title. So everybody who wins a national title gets a statue. That's just creepy. Can we not wait till people die? This is like North Korea, college football, right? North Korea, actually, I watched a documentary about this. They actually have like a state-run company that manufactures statues for despots around the world in like different parts of, South America, Ecuador, or Africa, or wherever. So they solicit these despots, and then they build these monstrosities, Turkmenistan. But North Korea literally has created this state-run company because they do so many statues. It's all statues in North Korea, right? Well, that's college football. It is. I mean, Florida had Tim Tebow as a statue down on the University of Florida campus. Oh, that's not creepy at all. No. Yes, it's creepy. And I'm happy to say now that I've said this, it'll change, I'm sure, but I'm happy to say like the only place I think that where you have a prominent player who's still alive, relatively young, but very prominent college football player who doesn't have a statue. One of them is Herschel Walker. Now, he may have a statue in some form somewhere, but it's not like Vince Dooley has this, the coach of the 1980 national title, Georgia Bulldogs. He's still around, amazingly. But Vince Dooley has this gigantic statue, even though it's not really close to campus. But it's down by the Butts Mirror building, way in the south part of the University of Georgia campus. I don't think Herschel Walker has a big statue on campus. Now, when Herschel's 87 years old, right, passes away, fine. And I went to the University of Georgia. So in no way am I saying that we're better than you guys, because that could change overnight. In fact, for all I know, there is a statue there right now. Who knows? Because I haven't been to Georgia in a year. I haven't been to campus. So I'm not saying we're better than you guys, but actually I'm saying that different ways. But so the statue thing, creepy, right? Just talking about Nick Saban. But as we get into college football traditions and we're refining these things down, that's something over there I really don't want to talk about right now. But one of the things you could refine it down to is, remember I was just talking about the LSU Tiger Eye as a subject or topic, because I've taken the original subject, that original poll where it was college football atmosphere on game day, just that basic general generic topic. I've taken that and then I've expanded it. So now I have another poll. I think I made a statement on this. I think I just posted this, my own rankings. Wasn't worthy of a poll necessarily. And so I put in best in-stadium atmosphere, like in-game atmosphere, just for a game. And the winner there is Penn State. And, the guy who got me to think about that was, if you watched the show Monday, you saw Matt Lombardo. And all the Penn State people are like this. But then again, all the Northwestern people are like that. You know what I mean? You ever notice that, Cam? There's certain schools, right? It's like people that went to Tennessee or Georgia, normally if they're sports media people, they're not going to go out of their way to tell you about the school that they went to and how great it is and particular elements or facets of their football tradition or their mascot. Northwestern, I literally know every single person that ever went to Northwestern that's in the sports media, like Michael Wilbon as an example, Darren Ravel, insufferable, right? Brent Musburger, same thing, Northwestern. There's certain schools where people just can't, and they're usually lower level schools where they have that inferiority complex. I mean, not an exception. Albert Beer, of course, went to Ohio State. Robert Littell, who's on the show, both of those guys have been on the show in the last 2 weeks, esteemed sports media members. But they don't talk about Ohio State because everybody knows they don't have to sell it. But Penn State is in that no man's land in the middle. And so if you talk to a Penn Stater, there's still that inferiority complex. Maybe it's Paterno. I think it is a little bit of Paterno. I think that really, knowing that you had a child, and I mean this in all seriousness now, I'm not joking around, but knowing that you devoted 4.5 years of your life to a place that was actually a child hunting preserve when you were in school there, and for all you know, Sandusky was hunting children right outside your dormitory door, and on all, I mean, that has a tendency to have an impact on people, wound them, if you will. And they want you to know that, oh, everything's okay now. In fact, though, with Penn State, the delusion is so strong that I don't even think they ever reached a point where they thought they had to sell you on Penn State. No, nothing happened. Joe didn't know anything about it. Right. Okay. Whatever. So we are Penn State. Okay. So best in stadium, though. Matt Lombardo kind of reminded me, because I worked in the Big Ten for years at Ohio State, went to Penn State. The thing about Penn State is, I mean, it's all like, these traditions where they have the students show up and do the whiteout, and they have all the stuff that you're supposed to do there. An enormous crowd. But they have this lion roar, this kind of synthesized, crappy, cheap sounding, rawr, rawr, this lion roar thing that they play over the speaker system, and they play it like freaking 2,000 times. God forbid if I was covering like, I don't know, Purdue or some bad team in the Big Ten. They're all bad, I guess. And you're losing like 60 to, oh my God, they play that thing every 5 seconds. But it's just really piercing. It's like a scream. But, you know, when you think about the passion of the fans, the consistency of the fans year in and year out, and Penn State has been through a lot of lean years. Contrary to what ESPN might tell you about Joe Paterno, he was a hack coach. 7-4, 5-7, all that stuff. But he's raising billions of dollars for Penn State. That's what kept his job there. And how did he do that? ESPN. He was always on television. He was always being mythologized. Now, I'm sure if a Penn State fan is watching this right now, they're probably not watching it anymore. They probably threw the phone out the window, right? They probably closed the, hit that button on their iPhone. Gone. Screensaver. But because that's how people deal with that sort of thing, at least in college sports, you know, just ignore it. We don't want to believe it. Didn't happen. So, but in the case of Joe Paterno, there's no erasing that history because his name's on the library. Great. And of course, nobody at ESPN is going to say a word about it. So, but Penn State for an in-stadium, this is a horribly negative commentary on Penn State, but in all fairness, the in-state atmosphere there, it's second to none. It's amazing. And I give them credit for that. That's about it. And it beats, Ohio State. That's more of a, a wine and cheese situation. The fans are enthusiastic. Georgia, very much a wine and cheese crowd, very much a Homer crowd. That's my alma mater. USC, if you can get them to show up, when the Pete Carroll era was going, the whole city was behind the team. It was the closest thing I've seen to the Lakers in terms of uniting the whole city. That's what Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll did. As far as in stadium, though, brutal, terrible. One of the best in stadiums, and I mentioned this when I posted this. This was not a poll, by the way. I just made this statement, and now people are going crazy weighing in. Nebraska. Nebraska reminds me, and an analogy would be, you have to go there to understand what I'm saying. But it's like this old War Memorial Stadium that was built in the 1930s and 1940s, and it is pristine. If you've ever been to Paris, right, you compare Rome to Paris in Europe, right? Rome, everything is broke. Well, it's older. It's like broken down, and it ruins, and everybody's head's knocked off, their nose is knocked off. Not everything's paved, and you're sweating all the time in Rome. You go to Paris. There's really two Parises. There's the modern Paris, the working city, and then there's the tourist Paris. And it's like this, it's like Pompeii almost. It's like this perfectly preserved city under glass, right? Perfect. And of course, the whole idea is lure people in. Of course, this isn't the way we live, unless we're trying to sell you foie gras, whatever it is. But that's like Nebraska. Under glass, everything is like perfectly preserved, pristine. The traditions, everything is lined up and how they do it during the game. The stadium at Nebraska, and I don't know if they have expanded it, but I went and saw a game there probably 7-8 years ago with USC. I was working the USC game, and it's not a very big stadium. I don't know. I can actually look it up right here, the capacity of that stadium at Nebraska. But that's what really, really stuck out to me. I mean, I've only been to one game there. Let me see here. What's the capacity of Memorial Stadium? And, of course, it's called Memorial Stadium. It's not called Memorial Stadium at Tom Osborne Field or United Airlines Field like at USC, which it is now. Memorial Stadium. Guys, where's the capacity? Please help me. It was built, let's see, in 1923. And that would be the same year that the Los Angeles Coliseum, the construction on that was built. Boy, was I ever wrong on this one. It seats 85,000. It just seems, now you got to remember, these are benches. This is not a lot of seat backs at Nebraska. So 85,000, hell, you and I could build something in the backyard that's 85,000. It's just bench seating. Just go to Home Depot and slap something up. Hey, you got 20,000 people we can get in here in the backyard when it's bench seating. But Nebraska, old school stadium, but it's a really cool thing, man. And the traditions and outside the stadium, kind of a little bit of a subdued environment, right? But the whole city, of course, shuts down, completely devoted. Lincoln's very close to Omaha. Neat little drive. Reminds me a little bit of the drive that you would have from, think of, if you know Alabama and Tuscaloosa, right? The drive from Birmingham to Tuscaloosa, a little similar to like the drive from Omaha to Lincoln. Same length, kind of same setting. Mark in the comments here is saying Penn State's game day is pretty great for a whiteout, but the difference between a whiteout and a regular game is significant, isn't it? Well, you got me on that, Mark. You may have checkmated me. I may have to delete that tweet. I may be dead wrong. Maybe it's not that great in stadium. Maybe, just maybe, we should elevate the Big Red. Now, they were always the Big Red when I was growing up, Nebraska. I don't know if they still call them the Big Red, but they call the stadium, at least according to Wikipedia, Memorial Stadium, nicknamed the Sea of Red. So that gives you a little picture, and we did the in-stadium stuff. All right, as we're refining down this subject, right? It's a little bit like slicing the garlic in Goodfellas. Slice this subject really thin. We can talk about it for 6 straight days. No, I mean, I used to, when I was doing a talk show in Columbus, particularly because that was the Ohio State flagship, I was doing a show at Kirk Herbstreit. We did it for 3 years, every day, 3 hours a day. And I did shows like that around the country. I did it in Kansas City. I did it in Los Angeles. I did it on Fox Sports Radio. These kinds of, I mean, any show you're going to do, right? You're going to do things like that. And it's all about, I mean, it's got to be something that's cool and interesting and people want to talk about. But then it's all about kind of like creating some sort of impetus for people to call, get interested in it. And by the way, if you're on the Fancred app, you're listening to me blather on about Nebraska and Penn State. And of course, I was outed there since I think I've been to I think it was 4 either 3 or 4 Penn State games. But then Mark, of course, outed me for my ignorance because I don't go to all the Penn State home games. And I would imagine, Mark, that the environment has changed markedly over the years from when Paterno was there at his height, and then, of course, towards the end, when the program's petering out, never know it, Joe's got to stay there. You know, for every reason they told us that Joe Paterno should stay and coach when he's 193 is the exact reason he knew what was going on. Okay, you can't have it both ways unless you're ESPN, right? Or the sports media in general. It's not just ESPN. I should not single them out. It's everybody. That's why when I report yesterday that Deion Sanders is actively involved in canvassing for a coach at Florida State, everybody freaks out. And everybody's saying, oh, you're using this cookie cutter formula. And I mentioned this and I predicted it yesterday on the show. If you were listening, I had reported, I think it was last week or early this week, that Peyton Manning is doing the same thing. He's canvassing for candidates for Tennessee. I know these things for a fact. These are sourced. This is journalism, all right? I've been doing it a long time with a lot of sources. And I know for a fact Peyton Manning's involved. And that's probably one of the reasons why you haven't heard one of the big college football guys out there taking pot shots at me, because they know it's true. They know it's true. And they know I'm not messing around. I'm not fooling around. But so when I report the Deion Sanders thing yesterday, oh my God, Florida State fans go berserk, screaming at me. They're upset. They're mad. And one of the reasons they're mad is They don't know the truth about how things work, how people are hired in college football, particularly. This is how it gets done. If you're Florida State, that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell, Florida State, for a head coach. It's not an attractive job. I told you earlier, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine Tony Elliott, who's the number one assistant coach in the country right now in terms of a head coaching candidate, he's at Clemson. If Florida State offers him the job, let's say they fire Willie Taggart, and they offer him a job, I don't think he's going to take it. And I don't think he's going to take it under any circumstances, because you've got to have an overhaul of those facilities. That's the number one thing. And while recruiting can be fixed because you're in Florida, it's not like Tennessee. Tennessee, it's a much harder job in terms of fixing recruiting. In fact, who's to say you can fix it? You can't exactly fix recruiting as a blue blood program like Tennessee fancies itself as and has been in the past. It was a blue blood program in the past because Tennessee was able to go down to Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina and recruit. And so many of their great players, you may remember Jamal Lewis of the Baltimore Ravens. He was a great running back for Tennessee. He was from Georgia. So many of their great players, by the way, Trevor Lawrence from Tennessee wears number 16 at Clemson, right? Because of Peyton Manning, wanted to go to Tennessee. You may have heard that story last week. Tony Basilio joined us last week or this week. It all runs together. That Butch Jones, former head coach before Jeremy Pruitt, he was fired for Jeremy Pruitt, turned down Trevor Lawrence. Didn't need him. So I'm just going off on all these different tangents, and I hope you indulge me, because this is actually something I know where I'm knowing what I'm talking about. But it all centers on the topic and subject at hand that we've been discussing, that we've been slicing really thin, like when you're at Jersey Mike's, right? You ever been to Jersey Mike's? And they got that enormous, monstrous, industrial size slicer. And it's like the most dangerous thing within like a 50-mile radius. I mean, it's dangerous. I don't care what. Just put the safety on. I'll just put that thing on my finger, that piece of foam. That'll help, if razor sharp. And then, of course, Jersey Mike's. Now, as far as I know, that's real meat that they're slicing. But when they bring in the big block, the big pink block, and they drop it on the counter, right? And it weighs like a metric ton. And it looks like somebody literally hosed something into it, right? And then it congealed and consolidated, whatever, right? That's whatever that is, capicola, right? So that's what we're doing to this topic, this subject. We are slicing it so thin for your entertainment and enjoyment. Here's another comment. Jeff asks, how many of the huge collegiate stadiums still use bench seating? Haven't a lot added the seat backs for higher prices? To a certain extent. Rose Bowl's an example. They've added more seat backs, of course. Problem is, nobody's going to the games at all. They're not even in the benches. It was so sad, by the way, Jeff. It was so sad watching I don't remember which game it was. I think it was the Oklahoma game. If you watched the Oklahoma UCLA game, both of you, right? Not many people watched that game. Not many people attended it. And it was really sad because they had the whole student section decked out. As you were watching the game, of course, they're trying not to scan the stands, keep the camera off the stands because it's empty, right? Especially as it was started in the early afternoon. So it was essentially a day game for most of the game. They don't want you to see this empty stadium. And it was particularly, Jeff, pitiful and sad when, they can't get around not showing you the stands behind the end zones, because if they do a shot behind the quarterback, whatever it is going in, you're going to have to see it. And that's where the UCLA student section was. And they had laid out thousands of pom-poms and programs, and they probably had a box lunch, whatever it was, right? Maybe a lobster roll. For the students that were going to attend the game, there wasn't a single student in the entire student section. It had to be 4,000 or 5,000. And they weren't seats, by the way, Jeff. That's bench seating there. And most of the Rose Bowl is bench seating. Most of the Coliseum is still bench seating, from what I understand. Now, I haven't been to the new renovated stadium. It just opened. If I'm wrong, scream at me. And if you've been to a game at the Coliseum, whether it's a Rams game or an SC game, I'd love to hear from you. You can click on that fan line icon. I have yet to reset. How unprofessional of me. I have yet to reset the fan line. All right. You've got this button as you're looking at me on the screen, and guys like Jeff and Mark, whatever it is, doesn't matter who it is. Love to have you on the show. That's fine. You can comment. Don't be shy. We're you know what, dude? We're just here to have some fun. It's not, again, I love Nick Wright, great guy. I love Ryan Clark at ESPN, but how serious are those guys? I can't do that. I just can't do it. Well, actually, you got to kind of laugh to keep from crying when it comes to college football and how they're ripping off the players. And I think it is a tragic situation, but I try to keep it light. And this is about as light a subject as you can get, but it's light to a point, right? Now, if you look at my replies and my notifications and my, whatever you call it, people tagging me in their replies about the college fight song. So I put Ohio State's Buckeye battle cry, and as we continue to expand the topic. So let me now tell you that this morning I added to this subject. Right? I added because I love college fight songs. I just do. I'm really embarrassed to admit it at this point. I wasn't always embarrassed when I was younger, when I was 14. Hey, mom, that kind of thing. Listen, okay, Brooks, I'm good. But my mom went to Oklahoma. She is a Boomer Sooner person. And Boomer Sooner actually made the top 5. I listed the top 5 college fight songs, and I was not trolling when I put Ohio State at number 1. Buckeye Battle Cry. That's not even the number 1 fight song at Ohio State. This place has so much so-called tradition. I mean, they've got like Buckeye trees. If you're an All-American, you probably don't know this. If you're an All-American at Ohio State, you get your own Buckeye tree. I mean, that's a little creepy. That's like the Nick Saban statue, when he's 37 years old. He has no connection to Alabama. He's like 52 years old. Well, we have a rule when you win a national. Why? Why do you have that rule? Because it's what defines the state, right? So the fight songs. So I listed Buckeye Battle Cry, which is kind of like the alternative fight song. And one of the reasons why, and again, I grew up in a Notre Dame household, the Victory March. I mean, that pretty much is the best fights. I got to admit, it's pretty amazing. The lyrics and the song, but it's a little plodding, right? Great old guy song. If you're like in your, mid 60s, still smoking cigarettes, massive comb over, you love the pacing of that song. Great rhythm. You've got that thing on all day game day, right? With your gigantic RV that looks like a Mars rover at Notre Dame. So, but the Notre Dame Victory March is burned into my brain. The lyrics, all that stuff, Shake Down the Thunder. Great lyrics, though. And at least they didn't steal the song the way Michigan did. Hail to the Victors, that melody was stolen from a guy who wrote it. And I think in New York City, there was a big story. I think we did it on SportsbyBrooks, or somebody did it. But it was pointed out to me that they stole Michigan. I keep saying steal. I'm not trolling, but that's kind of what happened. Michigan people, you guys stole that song. You stole the music for it. And by the way, you stole the music, right? And then you added the worst lyrics, the most dated lyrics in history. And you say, well, how would they know they were going to be champions of the West? That's part of the lyric. Champions of the West is like the last line. Cam, you know that. It's like the last line of the Michigan fight song. Bro, Manifest Destiny, anyone? Champions of the West. Well, this was actually when we'd already gone out and settled, and we had territories and states on the West Coast, Oregon and Washington, California. That was already going on, right? And you had Brigham Young out there doing his thing with God knows how many women and slaves, I might add. So this is when they were writing the lyric. And but Champions of the West, it represented the fact that Michigan and the University of Chicago were the most prominent Western teams at that time when the lyric was written in the early 1900s. And we didn't update those lyrics. We haven't freshened them up. And I don't think anybody would mind if they did, but you know. So I'm sure there's been a lot of people who've come and gone, undergrads and particularly football players. If you ask them, what does that mean exactly? Champions of the West. No idea. Big Ten West? You know, whatever, right? So you've got the really bad lyrics and the stolen sheet music. That's Hail to the Victors. And a tortured melody. Da, 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 da. You know how they do that? Da, 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 da. It's like weird. It's like really old time. You know, when you're listening to the 78s on the old phonograph, whatever it is, not a record player, mind you, like I grew up with. I'm that old. I grew up with, you know, the 33s and the 45s, you know, the LPs, 33s and the 45s, the singles. No. This goes way back before that. But that's what we're talking about. That's what it was written for, that era. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Great Gatsby era, which is fine. Now, there's a lot of stuff that came out of that era that's great. Unfortunately, Hail to the Victors isn't one of them. Isn't one of those things. Just my opinion, folks. If you want to tap that fan line button, we'll get you on. If you're a Michigan person, probably not happy right now. Maybe you don't want to talk to me. If you're an Ohio State person, welcome. Come on in. We're not against Michigan. Maybe we are. No, we're not against Michigan. But Ohio State, the reason I went with Buckeye Battle Cry, and I'll go through the top 5 here in a second. This is what we call a tease. And let me know about Mike Coppinger, by the way, Cam. I'm with you on that. I have not forgotten about Mike Coppinger, boxing reporter who we're going to have on to talk about Spence and Porter. I also want to talk to him about a story that he's been covering, Oscar De La Hoya. I mentioned it yesterday. Oscar's, again, he's done this many times, losing his mind. Want to get the scoop, because this is the scoop. We're going to get to that, and then we'll have Chris Myers towards the end of the show. But you know what? I'm really enjoying myself. I really am. This is a lot of fun. It actually is. But so when you look at the rankings here, Buckeye Battle Cry is number 1. And I worked at Ohio State. I've said it a million times. Did the pre and the post game show, did the Herb Street show, all that on the Buckeye flagship, Mr. Ohio State, right? Bruce Buckeye, the whole 9. Buckeye Battle Cry was like my favorite song. And one of the reasons is the percussion is so great and it builds up, and it's a little bit like the Notre Dame fight song. I don't even care about the lyrics. Just the music is great. And it's like a perfect marching band song. Perfect. And it always, it ends with this powerful flourish and chorus, right? And it's just like perfect. There's a certain subtlety to it. There's a certain softness, and then it's very loud and powerful, which makes it that much more powerful when it's soft. So it doesn't have like this kind of monotone feel the way the Notre Dame Victory March does, unless you do the long version of the Victory March. So Buckeye Battle Cry, if you go to my Twitter, SportsbyBrooks, you probably already have if you're here, but go there and click on it, and you're going to hear the song. That's number 1. That's the best college fight song out there. And I don't care about your school's tradition. Okay? Don't care. This is my poll. This is my tweet. So I put Notre Dame second. And then I'm pretty sure, who did I put third here? I put, let's see. Go to the top. USC's Fight On. Dun, 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 right? And then number 4, Booner Sooner, which is an amazing song. I love it, especially when you deconstruct it. There's so many little cool parts to it by the individual instruments. It's really neat. Boomer Sooner. And then Tiger Rag. Not the LSU version, the Clemson version. Clemson does it right. LSU, for some reason, has lost its way because that's a New Orleans song, right? That's Jelly Roll Morton, if you don't know. Jelly Roll Morton, the famous composer, piano player, died broke because everybody stole his music. Literally, that's what happened. He wrote that song. Okay. I don't know if he wrote the lyrics or not. Probably did. But you could find, there's recordings of him playing Tiger Rag. It's pretty freaking awesome. And he has like all these different versions of it. And then the governor of Louisiana, Huey Long, came along and wrote lyrics for the LSU version of Tiger Rag. But I think the way Clemson's band, marching band, does it is better. If you just listen to the two versions, and you know what? Let's throw Clemson a bone. And maybe we shouldn't throw them a bone, right? They got Dabo. But I kind of feel bad because the Clemson people are like watching this conversation on my Twitter feed, right? We're talking about, Michigan. Wow. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama. And they're kind of like, they're out of the conversation. They don't have much to talk. They're sitting in traffic waiting to get to the stadium. One road in, one road out, Clemson. All dirt roads lead to Clemson. That's what we used to say that at the University. Oh, that's what everybody used to say. Probably still say it. So I wanted to throw Clemson a bone. Hey, invite them over. You know, it's like Flounder and Pinto in Animal House. That's an old guy reference. But if you've seen Animal House, they go into the first so-called frat party, you know, where they run into Belushi and all that. And they're escorted around by Tim Matheson. And we escort the Clemson guys over to the not so cool guys table. And we'll just drop them off. Because you know what? The second Nick Saban retires, the second that program tanks at Alabama, Dabo will not walk, run to Tuscaloosa. And anybody who tells you, and now I'm getting into my serious mode, anybody who tells you any different is dead flat wrong. Dabo will beg, borrow, and steal to get to Alabama. The funny part is he doesn't have to do that. He could literally name his price. Just like True Car Automotive, right? Name your price. Price line. It's like the price line situation for Dabo Swinney at Alabama. He can name his price. They mobilize that entire state for that program, and they will mobilize all of the financial resources, and I'm not exaggerating, of the state, Auburn notwithstanding. That is a state school, by the way, to do whatever it takes, because it's gotten to the point where Saban, there's so much money involved. It's different today than it used to be. It's just different. Sorry. This is not Bear Bryant. There's so much more money involved. There's a dramatic increase, spike, because of the SEC network money coming in from the SEC. Because of CBS, they're going to redo that deal. CBS may lose it. We'll see. If they do, you know, ESPN and whoever gets it, Fox, is going to pay through the nose, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. But now you're talking about an industry. Alabama football truly is. It has transcended during Nick Saban's tenure. It's different now. So many people depend on a good life. They depend on Alabama being good. Right? That's one of the reasons why Alabama, I think, is the only state, if I'm not mistaken, that has criminalized NCAA violations. Great. So if you're an agent, you might not want to go down to Huntsville. You might want to stay out of Mobile, right? Unless you don't want to end up in the county jail or whatever on trial, because it just means more at Alabama, literally. And so that whole state is mobilized. So now think about the amount of money that Saban represents to that state, the identity of the state. Think about this. If you were stuck in an elevator in Boise, Idaho with a stranger, right? And the topic of Alabama came up. Stranger, Boise, Idaho, elevator, you're stuck, right? What the hell would you talk about when it came to Alabama? If you're an old guy, maybe Leonard Skinner. Sweet home Alabama. That's about it, right? Alabama football, Nick Saban. In fact, this is how powerful sports has gotten to the center of our culture. Take that principle in the elevator in Boise, Idaho, right? And what are you most likely to have in common with in 95% of the cases, right? If you're stuck in an elevator in like Newport Beach, California, it's different, right? They don't watch college football. They don't watch any football. People here in this city, do you know how many times? Do you know how many times I have talked to people that seem like, oh, they're just like me. We're hanging out at a bar. No idea that the Rams are even in Los Angeles. Chargers, San Diego, maybe? Don't even know that. There's a lot of people in Los Angeles like that. I'm thinking maybe San Francisco's like that. But outside of that, what towns are like that? So throw them out. Throw those 50 million people out, all right? Half the country. No, but a significant amount of people that you might not have football in common with or sports in common. But the rest of the country, if I'm stuck in an elevator in St. Louis, and it's going to be indefinite, right? Just hope and pray that, well, maybe you have some Purell on you or something like that, right? But you're going to be talking ultimately about what, the weather or sports. That's it. Sports. And so, but that principle is taken to its extreme at Alabama. And I'm not denigrating Alabama. I'm not. This is like a recurring refrain in United States history that the South, since the advent of football, when the South started playing football on a major level, where they built these huge stadiums in the 1920s and 30s, right? It was not college football. It was just called football. There was no pro football. And, in Alabama, there's still no pro football. There's still no pro football in Mississippi and in South Carolina, kind of. But not a coincidence, right? Just like it's not a coincidence that we didn't have a pro football team in Los Angeles for 20 years. Who are the anchor tenants of the stadiums that an NFL team would have to play in if they moved to Los Angeles? They'd have to play in a temporary facility before they got their new stadium. It would be the Coliseum, the Rose Bowl, and that would be USC, UCLA, right? Not a coincidence that NFL teams didn't get sweetheart deals to go play in those stadiums. Well, those stadiums were built in the 1920s, before a lot of these SEC stadiums were built. So anybody who tells you that Los Angeles isn't a football town, they couldn't be more wrong. It's a college football town. That's what we call it today. But back then it was just a football town, right? And here's another interesting fact. Think about all of the stadiums, all of them in the United States. What stadium has had the longest relationship with its anchor tenant in football? What stadium is that? Now, we know the Red Sox, we know Wrigley Field, the Cubs, and, there's some teams out there, right? But what about football? What's the longest anchor tenant ongoing in the history of the game, right? And the answer, outside of the Ivy League, where you have Harvard, you have Yale, you have Princeton, all three of those, that dates back literally to 1903 when Harvard built its stadium. Outside of the Ivy League, where they continue to play in those stadiums, Yale Bowl, USC, Los Angeles Coliseum. That stadium was built for USC football. The pretense was the Olympic Games. That's what got it built. But ultimately, the whole plan was, from the very beginning, because I've studied it, was to hand the keys to USC, not after the Olympics, but right when they built it. They built it 10 years before the Olympics. Oh, but it's for the Olympics. Okay, whatever. No, it was built for football. And at the same time, they were building the Rose Bowl, right? And what's funny is UCLA wasn't even around. They wouldn't be around to play football at a high level with USC until the late 1930s, when Jackie Robinson came along for UCLA and put them on the map football-wise. And that's what created UCLA as a football power, a legitimate elite football school. But UCLA actually played at the Coliseum for years. Beginning back in the 1930s, they shared the Coliseum all the way into the 1970s with USC. And often you would have UCLA play on Friday night and USC would play Saturday. Sometimes SC would play Friday night, even though they were the anchor tenant, believe it or not. That used to go on. Of course, nothing new under the sun as far as college football goes today. What do we have tonight? We got Friday night football, which is ridiculous. That's a whole nother subject. Why are we playing major college football games on Friday nights? Does ESPN have no freaking decency? Come on. I mean, seriously, we're playing every night of the week in college football. Can we pump the brakes on Fridays? Can we let the high schools have something? It's amazing. I've been to some high school football games around Los Angeles, and of course, throughout my life. I don't know about you, if you're in Texas, this is different. I understand that. It depends on where you are. But dude, like nobody goes to high school football games. There are some notable exceptions, but, the whole idea of Friday night high school football, really for so many different places, that's gone. It's over. And it doesn't help when you've got a good game on tonight. And that's kind of weird because you got Penn State, Maryland, and I know Pennsylvania is we know this from All the Right Moves and Tom Cruise, All the Right Moves being that high school football movie. If you're an old guy, you remember that. And of course, you've got a lot of great prospects coming out of Pennsylvania all the time. High school football hotbed. Penn State's playing Friday night? What? Why? Well, we got to get it on TV. And of course, that's a function in part from what's happened with the Big Ten Network and just over commercializing it to the extent it wasn't enough when the college football factories took over college football in the 1980s. That's what happened. NCAA lost control of college football in the 1980s. I can't believe most people don't know this. That's why there's no NCAA logo on the helmets or on the field or on the 150 logo. There's no NCAA logo anywhere because the NCAA doesn't run college football. It only exists in the context of college football when, USC or LSU needs the NCAA, to give off this appearance of propriety, right? And of course, the NCAA exists in the context of college football to justify not paying the players. Without the NCAA, you wouldn't have that phony baloney amateurism. Not to mention no workers' comp. And of course, the NCAA is devoted to making sure that remains intact. Not so much for college football, because ultimately the NCAA doesn't make any money off of college football. It lost control of the television rights in the 1980s when college football factories sued the NCAA. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And that's what changed everything in college football. When you talk about the injustice perpetrated on the players, before the 1980s, the NCAA controlled college football. There were just a couple of games on. I'm sure people who are watching right now remember there was a day when your favorite team, if you were lucky, was on like once or twice a year. If you were lucky and you were an Ohio State fan, you never got to see your team, maybe once or twice. If you were lucky, you got the Michigan game, and then you might get a game against Purdue or something. But, television didn't exist for college football. That's why the conferences and the schools sued the NCAA, took over control, and that's when the money exploded. Before then, the inequities of not paying the players, it wasn't as acute. It was unjust, but it wasn't as bad as it is today. And now it's brazen. Well, let's just rip the NCAA logo off the field. It's nowhere to be found. And we have no ineligible players. Everybody's eligible. Boy, these kids are smart. So hopefully you're sticking with me. We're going to be visiting here with Chris Myers coming up on the show. And we've been talking a lot of college football today. I've been kind of elucidating you on how things work, how they really work. And if you're a college football fan, dude, this is pretty cool. because I'm guessing you don't know any of this stuff. So I hope you come back. I hope you make me, this ugly face, part of your day. You don't have to look at me, though. Just put it in your pocket and put those AirPods up or those headphones on. You can listen to the show. Or if there's something I say that pisses you off, or I'm forgetting something or rambling on too much, you can hit the fan line and come on with me. Trust me when I tell you, we're going to do this every day. And we're going to have people on screen with me, people watching the show. We're going to get into topics, get into subjects, take questions. When I break a story, which we will do on occasion, we already have, we're going to be the place when we create the story, right? You're going to be able to come here and ask questions and get the nuance, get added details, right? That's all coming up in the future here, Sports by Brooks on Fancred. So, but we've been talking college football. We talked a lot about the fight songs, the traditions, the in-game atmospherics, and the tailgating. And we're going to get back to that because that's a great way, I think, to fire up the conversation here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. But now we want to bring in an old friend, guy I used to work with, and who's going to be doing the Rams-Bucks game. Also a guy who calls boxing for PBC on Fox Sports. Chris Myers, how you doing, Chris?
Good to be on with you, Brooks. I'm coming to you live from the Rams practice facility at Cal Lutheran. Okay, I had a little audio or Wi-Fi trouble, but I think we're okay for now.
The irony, right? You're right in the middle, and it's like you're right in the middle of the media center, no Wi-Fi.
Yes, always an issue. Yes.
Right. So, first of all, what were your impressions of last night, Eagles-Packers?
Well, I did the Packer games back to back in Green Bay, and I kind of expected them to stumble a little, even though they were at home and had the advantage on the short week because the Eagles were desperate to win this game. Game could have gone either way. I know the officiating is, again, a hot topic. There were some strange calls questioning both head coaches, but they're both offensive-minded, aggressive guys. That's how they're going to go for things. If they're going to pick on LaFleur for not running the ball, when he was down there at the one, remember he's missing Jamal Williams, their best inside runner. And certainly the Eagles were stacking against that, wanting the Packers to throw. But overall, the Eagles are a playoff team. And look, the Packers, if you would have said that they'd be 3-1 at the quarter mark of the season, 2-0 in the division, if you gave them that, they would take that at the start of the season, even though this was a game they could have come up with. So these both look like playoff teams, and eventually the Rodgers-LaFleur offense will hit its stride.
And one of the teams that I've been talking about a lot on the show, and I've talked, Chris, to a lot of people around the country, and they're all yelling at me that I'm wrong. I've been talking, and I think I mentioned this to you last time. I'm not sold on the Rams.
Yeah, I'm not.
Really not.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing on that. They're 3-0. They haven't played their best football, right? And look, who else in the maybe the Eagles. I don't know. Who else do you like in terms of
Cowboys?
Getting back to the
I love the Cowboys.
Okay, but let me just caution you on the Cowboys. I know they're going to New Orleans without Breeze, and I know they're 3-0, and they look like a guy. I think they're a playoff team as well. The combined, and they can't help who they play, Brooks, but their combined record of their opponents this year is 1-8. The Redskins, the Giants, the Dolphins. So we need to see, and where they're. And their defense is good, but Prescott still has to win a big game, a playoff game, and he has won. But I also saw him blow one against the Packers and Rodgers when they were a top seed in Dallas. So Dallas is right there, but the Rams beat them last year in the regular season before, and then when they played them in the playoffs.
We're visiting with Chris Myers. He's at the LA Rams facility as we speak, going to be doing the Rams and the Bucks for Fox on Sunday. And be sure and visit Chris Myers Sports on the internet. Chris's IG account, his Insta account, as the kids call it. Chris Myers Fox. One word, Chris Myers Fox. And on Twitter, he's a member of the Twitterati. _ Chris Myers. One word, _ Chris Myers. Now, what do you do on Twitter, Chris? What's the philosophy
Not a lot on
there?
Twitter, but on the ChrisMyersSports.com, the website, which seems outdated. I have a guy who compiles all the NFL info from writers around the league and opinions and puts them into something called the Daily Briefing, and we get that up there almost daily. But there's the stories coming out of Dallas, coming out of LA, the guys who cover the team, and kind of a good overview for you to pick and choose. And it's color coded which team you'd like to see. And there's some old interviews on that. Twitter, once in a while, look, IG, look, you were way ahead of the curve on this before.
Right, and then and by the way, then I blew it. Right?
Is that what I wondered what happened? But you were so far ahead. I thought maybe when you weren't around, I thought maybe you were the guy who invented Instagram.
Here's the thing: I don't want to be so far ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay.
I want to be right on time.
Right
next
on
time. All right. I don't want to be ahead.
Better to be right on
Where's
time.
everybody?
Yes, you.
What happened?
You had it with the attractive women and the college football.
There we go.
But you had the whole thing going. It was outstanding.
And you had access. So, you were right there at Camp BC with me at the radio station.
Right. I had before it exploded to the rest of the world. But I'm just trying to keep up. That's all I have. First, I have a job to do.
Right,
and then this is the other part of the job that they say, hey, promote, tell people what you're going, what you're doing. I don't like to get too personal, too behind the scenes. That's why it is personal and behind the scenes and confidential. But any kind of thoughts I can give, I'll throw them out there.
Well, just to digress for 1 second, and you probably, I'm sure you remember this, but we worked together on a show. You did an afternoon drive talk show with Bob Golick.
Bob Golick,
of course, and famous Notre Dame football player, brother of Mike Golick.
Right.
And he played on the Rudy teams.
Yes.
And do you remember Bob Golick talking about what it was like to play with Rudy?
A little bit.
Or he didn't really play with him.
Right. He was around. Yeah, there were so many. Well, Golick had some great Raiders stories too. But he had, and here's something I didn't know, and I don't know if you're aware of this. We'd be doing a show, and I didn't understand this at the time. It relates to player safety, and he would literally, I thought, because he was tired, doze off with his head into the microphone as we're talking with a caller or discussing something, and later found out it was narcolepsy and some ramification from being hit so much down in the trenches of playing in the NFL. So, and I think he went on to Cleveland to do a general talk show. I hope he's well. Saw him a few years ago. He
lost a lot of weight.
So
he lost a lot of weight.
He looked good, but it was a little concerning to me. I was like, come on, you got to at least stay awake for our show. Am I that boring? I mean, come on. But later we found out those were good old days of LA radio.
The one thing I remember though, just to drag this thing out as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, hope we're not boring people.
No, this is cool, I think. But if you've seen, I mean, Rudy is like an iconic film. And to me, Rudy's maybe not quite at the Forrest Gump level, but it's one of those timeless movies that people are going to be watching long after we're gone. And of course, you have that the amazing scene where Rudy finds out, Rudy Rudiger, Dan Devine's not going to dress him.
Right.
Remember?
Right.
And then all the players supposedly walk into the office and lay their jerseys down. And unfortunately, and I'm a Notre Dame kid. I grew up in a Notre Dame household. My dad, my brother, my cousin. So God knows I'm indoctrinated, a totally Kool-Aid drinker. And here, years later, I'm sitting there with Bob Golick, and he's telling me never happened.
Yes, and I have somebody else
who
works on my staff that was attended Notre Dame. He's a statistician who's been around the NFL and in PR departments and he alluded to that was exaggerated as well. Not that he would have been in that locker room. But that's a little bit, that's Hollywood. They take it and they run.
Tell me about it.
But it's almost a better story the way Hollywood tells it, even though we know the story did happen to some degree. Right.
Now, I want to talk to you about the fight as well. I want to talk to you about Spence and Porter. And first of all, I want to compliment you on the job and I know I've already said this to you once, but holy cow. I mean, had you done boxing before? What was that situation going in?
Yeah, I covered boxing, but in terms of interviews and having attended fights, grew up. My brother was a big, back when there was a closed circuit TV, the Duran Leonard, those fights. And my first radio interview as a teenager in Miami, went to the Fontainebleau Hotel, was Muhammad Ali. So after that, I was a fan of boxing, but it never called play-by-play, blow-by-blow, whatever you want to call it, until Fox got the PBC package and wanted Kenny Albert and I to kind of be involved in that. And so I studied up a little bit, talked to some people who did that as a profession, thought about the guys I watched, and just kind of went into it and just really kind of enjoyed it. The fighters, but just kind of enjoyed it as a fan. And I had people to lean on. You mentioned before Ray Mancini, Lennox Lewis, guys that really live the fight game that, I can throw things at them, bring out their analysis and their personality in a fight. So I really did. I enjoy that part of it. And I'll get back to that after the NFL season wraps up.
It has been an incredible ride for you. I mean, dating back to everybody knows you as a ESPN anchor, of course, one of the icons of ESPN SportsCenter as far as I'm concerned. But then you come over to Fox and you've done so many different things. including NASCAR. So tell us a little bit about that NASCAR experience.
Yeah, and I enjoyed NASCAR. Again, was around it, interviewed a lot of the drivers, but didn't grow up with it like I did football, baseball, boxing, basketball, the general sports. I was not a NASCAR fanatic growing up. I knew the drivers, knew the sport, and Fox wanted, at least at the time, they said, we'll get you a driver and a crew chief. We want you to be the TV guy. And Fox's approach to NASCAR was a little bit, let's try to make it more mainstream. Let's broaden it out a little. It has an image, even if it's not accurate, of being kind of a niche sport or Southern, and the sport was branching out at the time and really hit the high point through the 2003-4 era after the Dale Earnhardt tragedy at Daytona. So, look, Brooks, I'm a media guy first, a TV, radio guy. That's my passion. I'm a sports fan. I love sports. But if you said you could only pick one, I mean, the TV, radio, interviewing, that kind of that's really what drives me. And so I try to attach that to anything that people care about. And when it comes to broadcasting, do the homework, find an expert to bring out the best. And then the best part is live. I love live anything. And that's really what's great.
Yeah. So I want to tell, we're visiting with Chris Myers. Of course, _ Chris Myers on Twitter. He's at the Rams facility right now. By the way, where is that at? In Thousand Oaks or Hills or what?
It's Thousand Oaks. Sorry if I hit a button here and I'm echoing a little bit.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's off the 101 freeway as you go beyond Calabasas.
Now, are you going to ride horses afterwards? Is that what's going on down there? Or Topanga or what? You got a ranch down there?
No, I don't. The Kardashians and Bieber live out here somewhere, but
that's Hidden Hills too, right?
Yeah, they're gated. I don't think I can get in there.
Yeah, right. Whatever. You're the celebrity as far as we're concerned. Well, what about now? We're gonna have Coppinger on, Mike Coppinger of the Athletic, who is terrific. He's like the Adrian Wojnarowski.
Yes.
And it's tough though because it's the 1,000% true, but I feel kind of bad. Steve Kim, maybe Kevin Aioli. I'm not. We're not going to come on Brooks's show, but it's the truth. What am I supposed to do? The guy's breaking every story. So,
they shouldn't be offended by that. Coppinger does a good job. Yeah, and we need more boxing writers who are clued in on the sport.
Well, and that's why we're talking about it right now. I'm fascinated about it. I love it. I love what you brought to it because I think you've kind of bridged a lot of fans and the way your style is. And I saw that back when we worked on that talk show together. You're the ultimate team player. You're the guy that throws batting practice pitches, that makes everybody look good. And I think you really see that with your broadcast with Joe Goose and Lennox Lewis. But I want to ask you about the fight. What do you think? You've seen Sean Porter. What are you thinking with Errol Spence, Sean Porter?
Yeah, I like this fight. I know when we were last talking, I said I think Spence is going to win. He's a heavy favorite. I don't think he should be as heavy a favorite. This is almost more than when he fought Mikey Garcia, and we were there at that fight.
Now you called the last Porter fight, didn't you?
Yeah, yes, and I saw and I think Porter's unorthodox style, if you want to call it that. Some have called him in the fight game a little dirty tactics. I wouldn't say that, but I think that could give Spence some issues. And Spence obviously has all the advantages, and I think he's going to win the fight. I think it's going to go either the distance or at least 10, 11 rounds. And the intangibles for Porter, his dad trained back when Spence was an amateur. They'll find something there. I think this is the most experienced opponent that Spence has ever fought, so he'll have to be up for that. He didn't really get challenged in that Garcia fight. So I think that's going to be a very entertaining fight. And then we have the bigger picture of the welterweight division and where we're going next. But I think in the grand scheme, the pay-per-view guy is Spence. They want him to light up be the next Mayweather and then set him up for a Pacquiao fight, down the road. And I think he'll come through on this one, but it'll be a tough fight, very tough fight.
This has been a niche sport. I mean, since I've been around, since I was old enough to know what boxing was, it's been a niche sport. But do you think we're talking Fox. You're the big time guy doing the NFL, and you're also doing fights. And Kenny Albert, it doesn't get any bigger than you guys doing these fights. And Fox broadcast television. Do you think we're on the precipice of this bleeding into the mainstream?
I hope so. And I think that's one of the reasons Fox joined up with PBC. One of the reasons I came back to the fight game, never left it, but you want guys you care about, whether you root for them or against them, and not just man-made manufactured fighters, guys that are polished and that get out and fight worthy opponents. And I think the heavyweight division, and that's, we're going to get a Wilder Ortiz fight probably in November. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Fury Wilder in February. Eventually, maybe a Wilder Ruiz. So the heavyweight division, which usually carries boxing, except for the era of Hearns and Hagler and Duran and Leonard, that type of thing. But I think this welterweight division and the heavyweight division will help push it to be more mainstream. And the pay-per-view dollars, I think, are determining that.
So now, did you make your pick earlier? Did I ask you that?
Yeah, I'm saying I am going
10
with
rounds?
Yeah, at least 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go the distance, but I think Spence wins. But I said a very tough fight. It would not shock me. The odds at least started out way, way in favor of Spence, and that's always a concern. Porter's capable of winning, but I'm going with Spence.
Did Porter win that fight against Ugas? Because I don't think he did.
It was a coin. Yeah, we were right there ringside.
I remember it, dude.
Yeah.
I was watching that one closely.
And I think Lennox Lewis and Dan Goosen, we both thought that was a coin toss, a draw. But yeah, Ugas fought a tough fight. Deserved. Could have won that. Could have won it. And
there's a lot of great fights out there potentially if we can get everybody together. You're actually, Chris, you're the one who should broker these relationships between Al Heyman, Bob Arum, ESPN, Fox, DAZN, and you got Golden Boy. You're the guy.
You're the man. I'll get to work
matchmaker.
on that. I go back with Arum. Where's Don King? Maybe we can bring him in somewhere.
He's still around.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I've heard that he's still around.
Waving the flags and saying only in America. So only in
I
America.
wonder where he is on Trump. I wonder where Don. I'd be very interested to find out. He's just an American guy. It's like whoever's in. I don't know.
He supports. Yes.
Yeah.
He's gotten away with a lot in America.
He's the kind of guy that I'm not saying he'd be a pro-Trump guy, but he's the kind of guy, if he was young enough and still spry, maybe he is, for all I know. Hey, he's in the White House. He's with Trump today. He
would bring him to a fight. He would get presidents. Yeah. He was a great promoter. Probably still is if he wants to be. But Don King is around. But yes, you make a good point. That's who drives this. We have really, it's like the AFL, NFL, or separate leagues. If we can bring them together, the guys who are the money men, who are the brains behind boxing, and really are doing a good job promoting the sport and their fighters and taking care of them. We get those are the matchups that people want to see, and that'll make it mainstream.
Now, is your patio big enough to do a thing where you bring John Skipper over? Al, you got enough room at your place?
No, but we would probably do it in Hollywood, like go to like Spago or now the place is Nobu in Malibu is the hot spot.
Right,
that's where we do it and get people to cover it. It'll be good. So I'm not picking up the tab.
What? you could just invoice me then.
Yeah,
just invoice me. All right. We'll pay for it at Fancred. All right. Okay. If you can make that happen. Man, I really appreciate it. This has been great. Thanks so much, man, for taking some time out of your day, Chris.
All right. Anytime. We'll see you later, Brooks. Take care.
Awesome. Chris Myers, ChrisMyersSports.com and _Chris Myers on Twitter. Now we're going to go back out and we're going to talk to the guy I've been pimping the whole damn show. And here he is. I think we're going to get him. He's one of these guys. He's like Wojnarowski. He's like Adam Schefter. No matter how good of friends you are with this guy, you got to take a back seat. When you're a killer in breaking news, that's all Mike Coppinger does, and we're lucky to have him today. Mike, where are you at?
Hey, Brooks, what's going on? I'm here at the weigh-in at the Intercontinental Hotel, downtown Los Angeles. Packed house for Spence and Porter, the pay-per-view. And we're going to be we have a lot of fighters in the background right now, so it's going to be a great event. I'm excited for it.
That's freaking awesome. So you're at the weigh-in. I mean, what's going on right now? How are the fighters looking?
The fighters are stepping on the scale in 10 minutes. But Errol Spence and Sean Porter are two guys that always come in great shape. I don't anticipate any issues. Although when Sean Porter weighed in for his fight with Yordenis Ugas in March,
exactly,
he had to get a haircut just to make the weight. But
I covered that for my Barron website.
You did.
I did, yeah. And I just asked Chris Myers, who called that fight, for people that don't know, Sean Porter, who's fighting Errol Spence in the big pay-per-view fight Saturday, his most recent fight out here in LA, Chris Myers called the fight on Fox, and I think he lost that fight. Mike, what do you think?
I thought it was a really close fight. I think I had Ugas winning by a point, but I could have went either way. I wouldn't have had a problem if Ugas got the decision. I don't have a problem with Porter getting the nod, but Porter really made that fight too hard on himself. He got too cute in there, tried to jab and outbox him. He can't do that against Errol Spence. He's got to get in his chest, swarm Errol Spence, really bully him, use his strength, and just be relentless. Just be in his face.
Who do you like in the fight?
I'm going to go with Errol Spence. I have a lot of respect for Sean Porter's skills. I think he's underrated. I think he's going to give Errol Spence a better fight than people think. But Errol Spence is one of the best fighters in the world right now, if not the best fighter. We'll see when it's all settled. He has exceptional boxing skills. He's strong. He's bigger. I like Spence.
When you think about the big fights that are on the horizon, and I think a lot of people watching right now, not necessarily people that are going to seek out, maybe they will seek out this pay-per-view with Porter and Spence, but what are the big fights you think that could cross over to the mainstream in the near future in boxing? Or maybe they haven't been made yet.
I think that Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury rematch that's pegged for February 22nd, that's going to be an ESPN Fox joint pay-per-view. We have two charismatic heavyweights. They put on a great first fight, and now we'll have the marketing machines of not only ESPN but Fox. I think that's all the recipe you need to get a fight that can approach 1 million pay-per-view buys, which is really the benchmark in boxing. Other fights on the horizon, I don't really see them, but I think maybe fights that could be made: Vasily Lomachenko versus Tank Davis, Errol Spence if he looks good tonight against Terrence Crawford, maybe a Spence-Pacquiao fight. There are some fights that they can be made, and of course, as always, the problem is with boxing, they actually need to get consummated. Well,
you just mentioned, and this is stuff that you broke the news on. Everything that we're talking about, folks, all these fights and all the potential fights, Mike is on the cutting edge, or he broke the news of the fight and has been first on virtually all the big events over the past year. So he is the guy to follow on Twitter at Mike Coppinger on Twitter. He's the man. Now, you mentioned something that really caught my ear. We're talking about Tyson Fury and we're talking about Deontay Wilder in their rematch, but you said the magic words to me. ESPN and Fox are actually working together on that fight for a pay-per-view. How the hell did that happen?
I'll have a story in a couple of weeks on The Athletic, but, a lot of guys got in the room and got this deal done. Khan of CAA was instrumental in making sure that fight happens. He got together with Shelly Finkel, who he used to co-manage along with Manny Pacquiao's career back in the day. And Al Heyman's involved, of course, Bob Arum. But everyone got involved to make this fight a reality and to, get some synergy going here, ESPN and Fox. So I think it's going to be a really big event.
Visiting with Mike Coppinger. He is at the weigh-in at the Intercontinental Hotel downtown Los Angeles as we're previewing Spence and Porter. But we're also, just as importantly, talking about all the things that are going on in boxing, and these things are going to be on network television. They're going to be on ESPN, ESPN Plus. That's the key, that these networks want this live programming. Now, I've been mentioning this on my show, and you're, again, out front on it, and we don't know everything on it. I know that. But I think one of the more undervalued, I hate to call him an asset, but a guy that more people should know about, a guy who should be making huge fights and be a monster celebrity, I think, in the United States, is Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez works with Oscar De La Hoya. Background us a little bit on that relationship.
Canelo Alvarez, definitely the biggest star in boxing. He's the face of boxing. He even says so on his Instagram profile, face of boxing, and it's true. He's an exceptional fighter. He's a great-looking guy. He has all of Mexico behind him. I agree. He should be bigger. Not speaking English publicly, although he can speak it, is holding him back a little bit. But, Oscar De La Hoya is promoting him, and they haven't had the greatest relationship over the last couple of months. It's been a little frosty. Canelo and Oscar, when Canelo's protege, Ryan Garcia, took shots at Oscar, Canelo was retreating him all along. And we were at that press conference for Canelo's fight on November 2nd with Sergey Kovalev last week. And it was obvious that Canelo and Oscar just don't have a great relationship.
Now, when you talk about Canelo Alvarez, I think people who follow boxing, when it gets into the mainstream, when it makes ESPN Sports Center, when it makes those morning shows, when it makes FS1, people are buzzing about the biggest fights out there. Canelo Alvarez and Triple G come to mind. And, of course, we're looking at the third fight potentially. Where does that stand?
Canelo's adamant. He does not want to fight Triple G again. He hates Triple G. These guys really, truly hate each other. This isn't WWE storyline stuff. It stems back to when Canelo Alvarez failed the drug test for clenbuterol, and he said it was due to tainted meat in Mexico. Golovkin called him a cheater, said he noticed injection marks, and it was just a really ugly promotion for the second fight. Canelo won, majority decision, a very close fight. And when the zone signs Canelo and then Golovkin afterward, They have it in the Golden Boy contract that Canelo has to fight Golovkin again, but it's not in Canelo's contract. That's the problem here. There's 2 different contracts. So right now they have a problem with Golovkin, but they got him a title fight. They're going to have to figure this out. Oscar De La Hoya has been saying that Canelo and Golovkin is going to happen next year. Canelo says, don't. When I asked Canelo, you're saying you don't want to fight Golovkin again. Your promoter, Oscar, saying you're going to fight him again. What's the deal with that? Oscar said to me, Canelo said to me, Oscar says many things that make no sense.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation right now, but that's nothing new for Oscar De La Hoya. I know you're right in the middle of work, and Mike, got to have you back on, man. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Brooks.
That's Mike Coppinger of The Athletic. I didn't mention that earlier, The Athletic, and you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Coppinger, Mike, all one word, Coppinger, or you can go to The Athletic Box. And let me tell you, subscribe to The Athletic, please. Just do it. I did it. Actually, I thought what happened to me was I thought I canceled it, and all of a sudden, I was having some problems with my, we're going to get out of here in a second, Cam. Having some problems with my credit card the other day. And so they were asking me, what was your last transaction? And they said, or I asked, what was the last transaction? And they said, The Athletic, $49.70. I'm like, what? But then today, this morning, honest to God, this really happened. I'm like getting ready for the show. As you could say, I'm very well prepped for the show. Absolutely. Yeah, right. But I get on The Athletic. I'm signed in. I can read everything. I can read Mike Coppinger, and it's the #1 boxing site, believe it or not, on the internet. But of course, The Athletic's so much more than that. I don't work for The Athletic. They don't pay me. I wish they did. But I wish a lot of people pay me. But so get to The Athletic, subscribe. You're going to get Mike, but you're going to get everything. And there's no ads. They got a podcast. Mike does a podcast as well. He's a rising guy in sports media, the kind of guy we love. We're catching him as an ascendant figure in sports media. So that's going to do it for today and for the week. I want to thank my producer, Cam Smith. Tremendous job. Chris Myers today. We had a cavalcade of stars this week, and we're going to do it all over again. And we're going to talk to you on the fan line. Follow me on Twitter. Get on the Fancred app. Spend the weekend on it. NFL Sunday. You're going to have fourth quarter live with guys like Jeff Kavanaugh, who was with us earlier today, 105.3 The Fan. Maybe Stomp Face and Molly will be there too. His dogs, maybe. You got Mike Felger, Marconi, major market personality of the year at the Sports Hub in Boston. He does Patriots Live. So check that out. We got the Steelers. We got the Eagles. So you can watch the fourth quarter with these big personalities in these markets on this Fancred app that you're watching me. Yeah, you just stumbled on it. Brooks lured me over here about that damn fight song. So that's going to do it for today. And again, for my producer, Cam Smith in Boston, this is Brooks Melchior saying so long from Los Angeles. This has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.